Okay, got cut off or I cut myself off, I'm not sure which, but the title was Archon and Humans Battle for Existence. Now, I, we're spiritual beings in a physical body. Our thought creates reality and we're all connected. That's the basics of the human being. And everything is frequency, vibration, and energy. And we are in a artificial computer-like world that is different to our essence. But we are in it and operating in it, and it infiltrates our reality. We interact with the technology gives us our perception of what this earth is. It's a perception. It's not probably the correct, or certainly not the full picture of what makes up our reality. It's a small portion of our reality. We see a small amount of what is the big picture or the real world. Now, I'm going to assume that some of you have seen the previous videos, or that you have some idea of the false reality of the world, that we are living in a video game matrix type world, and that at best it is controlled by other humans that manipulate our perception of reality. Because we don't, as I said before, we have ventured from the Garden of Eden and we're now in a society, which is a construct. Society is the opposite to the Garden of Eden, or what we originally were in, assuming you believe that. If you don't believe that, you can still listen, I hope. Um, but either way, even if you believe that we were just humans and there was intervention at some point to where we um, became as we are now. As I've said before, I believe we've devolved rather than evolved, because we took the wrong path, because we're spiritual beings, but we've now went very much into the physical. And I think most people would agree with that anyway. And we're all guilty of that. And I say guilty because it does make us, it limits us, whichever way you look at it, I think, really. Because if you are governed by the material world, well, then it has a control over you. You're not free, and we all know that because we worry about the material things. Right now, I worry about the things that are a problem, and they're all physical things. Your health, the things that you need to survive in this constructed society are all physical things. None of it is mental, really. The mental aspect is, but it is a mental mind game, because the fact that we need all these things and that we worry about them is the mind game. It's where we are playing. It is a physical um, mind game reality that we're in, as I've said before. But anyway, I wanted to say that, see, at the present time, we are going more and more away from what we do naturally. Now, in doing this, we, like for instance, if we do not um, if we do not make other human beings that are the same as us, and they are, in other words, naturally making human beings, then we branch away from nature, we say. I guess the title is what I was trying to get to. But I've said before that if you're a spiritual being, then it makes sense that you should that we should be continuing our spiritual humankind we should be producing that way, reproducing that way. If you go technically in any way, as we have and do, you are you're making the spiritual human being more limited, because, as I've said before, technology is for a technical being, spirituality is for a spiritual being. Now, when I say I personally have placed together, this is what this, and you'll say this is silly, okay? But I've said in another video, look at the Matrix movie. That tells you a kind of what we're probably living in. A kind of what we're probably living in, okay? And I mentioned the movie They Live, to where the world that we're in the Matrix, but it is being, because it is a matrix and technologically controlled, we are influenced by the technology. We think according to the technology in a way. I would say 100%. But, there are exceptions, to that. And it's hard not to. Now, and I have said throw in the Truman Show, because that shows that we are watched by the God and by other humans in the Matrix. But, not, and that you are only allowed to, like in that show, only allowed to go and do what the Matrix allows you. Or at least you'll be directed that way. I'm not saying that you couldn't push past it and do something that the Matrix wasn't directing you to do, but I'm saying it would be hard, and as you're not aware of it, and you know what I'm trying to say, is that it's more likely that you will go with the circumstances. Circumstances are the Matrix, okay? So circumstances often dictate our lives, but the circumstances are the creation of the Matrix. Everything that happens around you is the Matrix. Even the human beings that are around you and that are there, every even living thing now is part of the Matrix. They should all be separate, or at least they would have been originally, I think, but they're not now, okay? They're all under the domain of it and influenced by it and directed by it, etc. But I'm going to throw in another movie, right? And this is the big movie. I've not seen it. I'll have to say that. I will get around to seeing it, but I can't get a copy. It's called Prometheus, I think. Now, I have seen like little reviews of it and a little bit of, what's that word? Is it synopsis, where they might give you a bit of pieces of the story. And you're going to say I'm quite ridiculous that I'm piecing together movies to come to a kind of, not so much a conclusion, but a possibility, okay? But that is what I'm doing. And I'm just, you can think of it what you will and take it or leave it. And if you throw in all those movies and then you add that Prometheus movie, now, like I say, I will have to see it so that I get the details, but And even if I've got the movie wrong, I'm going with this anyway, okay? It's like as though you're getting the vibe from somewhere, so you're saying, I'm getting it from something, okay? When I say the Archons and the humans are battling against for existence, they're battling one another against extinction in a funny kind of way. This is what come to me from the movie and from the vibe that I'm getting. Now, this is because I think the Archon collective, now it may be some of them or it may be all of them, I'm not sure, could even be the God himself. They're all technical type beings. And they have went away, I would guess, if they're technical beings. They wouldn't breed naturally. A technical being would not breed the same way a human does. Now, you see what I'm trying to say is humans are going that way too, okay? They're not all breeding naturally. And when they do breed naturally, there's problems too, because there is intervention, there's external forces, they're in a matrix, it can't be avoided. I'm not going to go into the details because I'm no expert on it, but if the technological beings have, how should I say, I'm not a scientist, I'm not an expert, this is just what comes to me. If they have out-technologicalized themselves in their endeavour to advance, but at the breeding level, at the level of where they have to keep reproducing, shall we say, in order to keep going, as humans and any species has to. If you can't breed, your species dies. That's the way it works. We all know that. I'm sounding stupid saying it to myself, but if the technological beings have, and they would breed technologically, they would not breed naturally because they're not natural beings, they're not spiritual beings, and they're not natural either way. So even if you want to say they're spiritual, if they're using a lot of technology, that would be their means for continuing their kind. You know, you would say a God probably wouldn't have to do that. Well, that's another issue. That's for you to decide, you know, but I'm saying that it could happen that although you are an advanced species, more advanced than the humans, you could get to the point where the technology no longer reproduces a being. In other words, you know, you are headed for extinction. Like even if you're a being that lives for thousands and thousands of years, which would seem almost immortal to us humans because we think we just live for, 60, 70 or whatever, and that is our span here in this realm. Of course, if we're spiritual beings, that shouldn't be the case and wouldn't be the case, but that's another, but this is what I'm getting at, combine all those things, is that if the technological beings, like the movie Prometheus, whether it's true or not, or whether I've got the movie right or not, and I'm combining it with the movies, because I believe everything has to be put to humans and shown. I've said that before. That TV world, that world is no different to our world. It's all the same. In fact, it shows us more because that's the idea. We are meant to be here living this limited earthly existence. That's our experience. I'm not saying it was meant to be that way originally, but it has been that way for most of our history, evidently, or at least the history that we're aware of, and certainly now anyway. So, if you live for thousands and thousands of years, but you can no longer reproduce, then at some point you are going to be extinct. Okay, that's just it. And that can happen, I think, with technology, because natural breeding, If you breed naturally, as humans have done all along, but have gradually went a bit away from that for various reasons, the matrix, I would say, because I think everything springs from the matrix. So that means it is a idea for the future, and it is a direction that, we're shown to go. But I'm saying that the technological beings have took that path, and they could well be on the brink of extinction. Obviously not today, because they still live for such a long time, but it is something they would be aware of and they would know. And also, as if they're different beings, I've been told this, that their timelines are different to ours anyway. See, our timelines here on this earth are nothing to them. And, like our spans mean nothing to them. Our spans, that's why they can plan things with the matrix for hundreds of years, even thousands of years. They can plan things because that timeline for them is the equivalent of 6 months for us. So, yourself, you have no problem, you or I would have no problem planning something in the foreseeable future, the 6 months or a year or whatever. And even that's a reasonable time chunk out of my existence. But for them, thousands of years are a small chunk because they live for so long and their time is different. This is what I have been informed. So they have no problem planning things for a long, long time, because a lot of humans would say to me, look, oh, you can't be right in what some of the stuff you say, because surely even if other humans or other beings were operating this way, they just wouldn't care about what happens in hundreds of years' time or this sort of thing. But they do, because their timelines are not like that. They do not see that. We see that as an astronomical amount of time that we can't even be bothered about. That's why we're in the position we're in, and that's why we keep going down the wrong road, because we can't see timelines, and we don't worry about 100 or 200 years because we don't think that we will be here. Like myself, like I'm thinking I'll be gone tomorrow, and that could literally be true, by the way. So I, as a human being, don't worry about what's going to happen in 100 years' time. But I probably should be, but I'm not, because I don't think I'll be around. I know I won't be around because that's the reality that I'm told I live in. But, if you, there again, if we are spiritual beings and are actually more eternal, then it is possible that you will be around, and that whatever you create now does become your reality for the future. You don't actually escape that. And but anyway, getting back to it, and if the beings, the God entity and his minions and stuff, are in this position, then the human beings that are here, they are natural breeding human beings. Human beings, provided they breed naturally, can never go extinct. I mean, obviously, if they were wiped all out at a physical level by the Matrix, yes, they could go extinct. That's not going to happen, because the Matrix doesn't want that to happen. Because they need the human beings, and they need them. I'm guessing, because otherwise they would have wiped them out a long time ago. The Archons, that collective or that entity, whatever you want to use for it, even if you want to say humans that are operating that way, because it's the humans on the planet, on the earth, should I say, Planet, I'm going to use planet just as what I mean the Earth, so I don't care what it really is, okay? But even the fact that we talk like this now shows that there's something strange, because a lot of things that we would have held to be a sure thing, 100% no doubt, and cannot be altered, we would now, some of us would now dispute. And whether that is true or not doesn't really matter, but it is interesting that our reality, even at the levels that we've been used to, is now being told to us to be a bit different, and that can be tweaked and changed in the blink of an eye by the Matrix. They can change things quickly. They can say, what do you know, we've discovered something new, this is now the truth, what you believed before is not true. And this can be done, and it does happen. It has happened down through the centuries. It's just that, like I say, our timelines are so limited that way that we don't think back thousands of years, whereas the Archon entities, they see that as a very small space of time. So actually things are always being changed for us, but we're not aware of it because we don't remember. We, you know, even if you presume that you know, I'm not saying this is even the case, but presuming you had been here many times, you don't remember those times, so it's of no use to you, it's of no relevance. You can't go back and say, oh, what, they've changed my reality now, they've changed all the facts, they've changed what it is to be human, they've changed what it is, they've changed what this earth thing is, they've changed the whole reality. What I thought was the truth about the earth is now not true, and something else is true. but you wouldn't know that because you wouldn't remember, because you know, we only remember. That's assuming you would go along with that idea, and I'm not saying that I do not know. I am saying that if we are spiritual beings, we should be not limited to just one existence just here. That would not make sense. But it could be an existence elsewhere. I'm not saying that because there would be other realms, that this may not be the only realm, but it could be too. It could be the only realm that we're pushed into. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to, you know, I'm like everybody else, just floundering and finding things out. But some things I'm really accepting to be a truth, okay? And I am thinking that these beings are fighting for their existence as humans are fighting for their existence. And how can I explain that? Now, you know, because if the beings are on the verge of extinction, even if it's a long way into the future by our standards, that is their they would still be having to find a way to stop their race from dying out. And technically, they can't do that, because if they could, they would do it. But their technology is the reason that they are on the verge of extinction. Because if you breed, because as I've said before, if you breed naturally, this is only my view, okay? If you only breed naturally, your race will never die out, everything being equal. Obviously, as I've said before, there could be many other things that can bring the human race numbers down, because we're in a matrix. But if all things being equal, if you're in a healthy world and you breed naturally, there is no way that the actual human race could ever possibly die out, and there is no way that that process should be compromised or stopped, or to where that is not possible to do that. But if you look at the world, these things are happening. There is less of natural breeding. There is more problems and stuff like this. Now, the Archon beings They are all technology, and they are on the verge of extinction. And humans are battling too because their natural process is being compromised. You know, there are people that can't have children naturally. And I mean, look at it this way too. If you were like, say, any person that chooses not to breed with the opposite sex naturally, if if those were the only human beings left on this planet, they the whole human race would be extinct within a generation. That's a fact. You know that, and that's common sense. You see the point that I'm making there here? Any human being, regardless of what you think mentally, if you don't breed with another human being, another spiritual human being of the opposite sex, naturally, your race would die out. You and all your kind would die out if you did not do that. At least if some of you didn't do it, okay? That's just a fact. Now, if you are a human being that for whatever reason cannot or chooses not to breed with someone of the opposite sex of your own kind, a human being, and you use some other means to do that, a technical means, because anything other than that will be something using technology. It has to be, because that's the only alternative there would be. You know, then you are operating like the technological beings that control this earth. Technological God entity and their minions, who are going extinct because they have only reproduced technologically at some point. I'm not saying this was always the case, I don't know, but they are technological beings, and that is how they reproduce. That is how they keep their species, their kind, going. Even the God entity is probably at that same point, but I do not know this. I'm not 100% sure, okay? But do you see the comparison that I'm making here? This is why the title of the video was Archons. Oh. Someone says, did they go through evolution like humans did? Did the Archons go through evolution like humans does? I really should be finishing this video, but oh, well, you took me by surprise. Did they go through evolution like humans did? Well, that is an interesting question. What is evolution? I suppose if you want to look at it that way, then I do not know how could I know the answer to that? They have, whatever their species or their type of being is, okay? I've used descriptive terms. Some people say Anunnaki, reptilian, humanoid types, grey types. These are the ones that a lot of people link together as the Archons, okay? And there is, as I've said before, there's a spiritual component only in the sense that the humans that are aware of these beings acknowledge them through their God on this earth, otherwise known as Satan or whatever. This is their, that is a symbol. Oh, I'm getting confused here. Look, the evolution, okay. If you're talking about technical beings, they could have started spiritually, but they could have went technologically. This is what I'm saying with human beings. They are spiritual beings. But if you incorporate technology into your physical existence while you're here, my personal belief on this is that if you you can evolve anyway. A species could probably, I mean, I'm no expert, I don't understand things, okay? I'm not a scientist or anyone that knows that much, but I would think, right, that any species, humans and any when I say species, any entity, uh, extraterrestrial, interdimensional beings, technological beings, all the different aliens, whatever you want to use the word, I don't know the words that you have to use to describe things, they will choose to evolve a certain way. Humans are choosing to evolve technically now, okay? We've gone away from, yes, we're going away from everything that is natural and spiritual, but forget even spiritual if you like. We're going away from what is natural. I believe they're the same thing. Natural and spiritual must stick together, and technological is a separate thing. Now, of course, some of these beings, they have evolved too, probably for, if they were around, and I'm guessing that they were around long before humans were here. Not necessarily here, of course, but around. But they have, I mean, there again, I have not seen that movie Prometheus, but I would say see it, and I will try and see it. But on the little synopsis that I did see a little bit, were not those beings more natural, these creators of humans almost? That's what the premise of the movie is. I do not believe that, but there are humans on this earth that believe that the Anunnaki intervention with humans, I say it was an intervention, but there are many who believe that they actually created human beings almost like in a laboratory, right? And that we as human beings are their creation, and therefore they are our gods. And that would, will there be our creator? There again, I don't know. Do you have to worship even your creator? It's still a choice. Because if you're a creator being as well, because humans do create reality with their thinking, that doesn't mean they're like the God of all, but they are a seed of it because they do create, you see. So they're like little children or little thing. I can't explain these things very well because it's a concept, but you have yes, you could theoretically evolve anyway. I say it's devolving if you go backwards. If you, as I've said before, if you're a if you're a spiritual being and you were given the ability to have many, many, many abilities, but you have chosen to close those off, whether it's through, as I've said before, the Garden of Eden, we chose to go with good and evil, go with the knowledge, but at the expense of the spirituality, and also at the expense of, in my view, as I've said before, creation is worship. Oh, someone says there, are the archons spiritual or physical? Oh, well, that I would have to say that I do not met them, but in light of their use of technology, and don't forget the archons, I don't know this for a fact, but they are a collective. That is a collective term, okay? I'm guessing. So that means they're really like probably three different types of beings. I think I said this in another video, but I'm not 100% sure of this, and it may not matter. But no, I would not think they are very spiritual, okay? No, I would not think so. Yeah, I would not think so. They do not, they use the human's spirituality to get them to play in the matrix. And they know that it is powerful, I think, but they themselves use technology and they worship technology, and technology is their tool, and it is what they have evolved and see as then they're not empathetic, and this is the case. So they're not really very spiritual. No, they cannot be. And I think I said this before, that they've they've opted for the intellect and the advancement of technology over the spirituality. But with human beings, I personally would say that when they are at their highest spiritual level, intellectually and every other way, that is at a top level too, because it's all combined. But it's not the essence, it's not, um, like I've said before, if you just if you're at your highest spiritual level, instead of down here and very much into the physical, like we are, like right now, my throat is burning up. And so I'm preoccupied with the physical. And that becomes my predominant way of thinking. So therefore I'm becoming more technical too, because I'm not at a high spiritual level. But if I was at a high spiritual level, I would probably be able to override that problem anyway. And it would not be a problem. I would probably be able to even cure it. But down here in the technical physical level, then I would be looking for physical technical means to solve it. But at the higher spiritual level, as I've said before, the spiritual human being just knows everything. So they have no need of technology. They have no need of science. They have no need of any of these things, because they are all these things. It's a bit like, I'm going to go religious again, even though I don't really do that. But as I said before, if the actual individual, like say a Jesus Christ, and I'm not going into whether he existed or not, but just presume it, if you go on the words that he spoke, okay, this is what I would say. I'm not interested in the life or all that story scenario. I'm not sure that it's 100% correct, and it doesn't matter. I find it negative in the sense of the dying and all this sort of stuff and all that. But because it shows human beings at their worst, and it shows that he was not successful in his endeavour to show human beings how to rise to a higher spiritual level anyway, you see. But if someone like him exists and is at the highest spiritual level, then, that person is just in one person at that high level. They are then the greatest scientist, they are then the greatest doctor, they are then the greatest thinker, they are then the greatest intellect, they are then the greatest everything, because they just know everything. So everything else, it's a bit hard to explain, and it is a vast concept, and as us in our present state are the complete furthest removed from this, it seems like an impossibility. But if we are spiritual beings, and most of what we have is closed down, and we don't know what is around us at all, as I've said before, we don't we don't even know what's going on in this world. Even at a physical level, I'm aware that I'm now realizing that even this physical world is so much more complicated and so much more technical and so much more advanced than what I thought, and that it is a computer generated control system operation in play. And once you see that, then you have to take it further and say, hey, what is controlling this? What operates this? And the humans that are operating for it, who are they operating for? How are they involved? What is, because you know, but no, they could not be spiritual beings in the sense that humans are. No, because but either way, I said that. Okay, so I'm rambling, and you know, but what I was getting back to, and like in the movie that Prometheus, they started out, I think, as natural, very highly advanced spiritual beings, or at least they were not technical. Because the only reason I say that is because they the physical demeanour of them, which was in the synopsis, was more natural. They looked very much like humans look. But in the other, as the movie progresses and they have clearly, yes, evolved, if you like, their body has become more artificial in parts and stuff like this, okay? So therefore they have incorporated technology into their physical, natural being that was more natural at the start. If you look at the older ones in it, okay? Have to see this movie, look, but it doesn't matter even if this movie, if I'm getting the movie wrong or whatever. I am saying that yes, the movie is then saying that the beings at some point could no longer reproduce because they had incorporated the technology into them too much. In fact, because they had incorporated technology into them at all, really. Whereas originally they would have been able to reproduce and therefore eternal and, like humans, able to keep their species going. And this is the message of the movie in a funny kind of way, I think, anyway. I mean, I know it's a complicated movie and I haven't seen it, but I just go on the very basics of things and I'm just saying it. But you see, the message there is clear, isn't it? And this is why I'm saying with human beings. And that's why the title was A Battle, and it just came to me, for human and Archon existence. Both of them are kind of battling at the present time for they're battling against extinction, and only one will win unless humans decide to just say, hey, we're going to stick with our natural way that has kept us alive for a long period of time despite being in an artificial matrix with a lot of odds against us. I believe it's the only reason we are all still here. And probably we are not all still here anyway. But the numbers would be less and less, and the number of human beings that can do this will become less and less and less. And now, there probably are many more complications to what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to go there because I don't fully understand it yet. And it is very hard for me to say, particularly if I don't know exactly who I'm talking to right now because I'm using technology. I don't know what the mindset or the spiritual level of the humans that I'm talking to is, or whatever, or whether, you know, I cannot say that. But I'm assuming that it is probably pretty good. I'm guessing because maybe I don't think that people who think a real lot different would listen to the video, although I would naturally hope that the idea really is to just point out this, what I think is a reality about humans surviving on this earth, because I do not think they can survive if they reproduce technically, the same as the advanced technical beings, the gods, if you like, have out technologicalized themselves at that um, procreation level, and without that, your beings, you whatever you are, you cannot keep going. You will become extinct, and that's why I say humans are battling it out with the Archon entities, even though they don't know it, because if they if you have more and more of them not breeding naturally, because if you look at it in the past, without getting sidetracked as I always do, this is what just occurred to me a while back. Even when humans, as I think I've said this before in a video, when humans have wiped out vast numbers of themselves in wars, for instance, which are directed by the Matrix, because it's all the Matrix, humans fight one another. The Archons don't wipe out humans, humans wipe out humans. They might be under the misapprehension or the directions of the Matrix, but they still make that choice, and they do that. But even when this has happened, regardless of what the intentions are of the Archon control beings that control the Matrix, this Earth, even when vast numbers are wiped out, humans will then, like we had the baby boom after was it the Second World War or whatever? I remember, where a lot of humans just brought the numbers right back up. So they defeated the Matrix, if you want to look at it that way, if the idea of the Matrix was to bring the numbers down. So I'm saying, yeah, but this is just what I'm speculating, so I don't know. And maybe it was intentional anyway. Maybe at that point we were meant to keep the numbers up because we were needed or whatever. I do not know. But it still did occur to me that if there was a negative thing trying to bring the numbers down, that the humans, just by their natural procreation, were able to bring the numbers back up again. So they kept their own species going, and they were here in a natural way for quite a while. I don't know what the numbers are at the present time. I don't know what the situation is with the human race. I don't know how many people are breeding naturally and how many humans are coming into the world as opposed to how many are exiting. I would have doubts because I think that sometimes we may or may not get the correct statistics there again. We are told that the world has a large population, but that is what we're told, and how many are actually breeding naturally amongst that population is another story too. And you would say, well, no, that can't be right. If we have a certain amount of population, they would all be breeding naturally. Well, they may or they may not. Now, if it gets to a situation, and I don't know what the real situation is, it is just me fantasizing as usual, okay? But we live in a fantasy world, so my fantasy is no less real than the fantasy, artificial, fake world we live in anyway, I don't think. But, for all it's worth. But if the human numbers that are breeding naturally are quite low, and we go to breeding like in the movie Prometheus, where the advanced beings, so-called creators even of humanity, and this is what I'm told, but I find that bizarre, but certainly there was intervention, so it's reproducing that same story of where the they came from outer space, the beings, Anunnaki, whatever you like, and interbred with the humans and created the human as they are now. But I've always went along the lines that there was already a human being there, and that they interbred and changed the human being and took away, because it was more serviceable, as the story goes, for the human being to be more limited, because a spiritual human being is not going to serve a god, because the spiritual human being doesn't need to do that, because the spiritual human being at the high level can create any reality for itself. So there's no god or other being that they would rationally need to serve or bow down to, because they should be able to create anything for themselves. But if they are seduced and are not aware and have not reached their full potential, and they get seduced into thinking that the other being that appears to be bigger and more impressive and has technology, and they believe that that being will give them more knowledge, the tree of good and evil, the tree of knowledge, all this sort of stuff, which is like the biblical thing. They will then go with that being and reproduce and be compromised because they had not developed to their spiritual level, if you follow me. I've said this before in other videos, but if there was anyone new listening, this is the problem, is that I think then they get lost, but that can't be helped, you know. But I suppose you could look at the other videos or look at other videos from other people. I would suggest that. But but yeah, so what I'm saying is that then you would have a battle for the human beings and the technical beings, the Archons, both battling to stop themselves from being extinct, because the humans would be gradually using less of their natural means to reproduce. So they are in a position where they could go extinct, and so then they will have to use technical means in a laboratory to reproduce their kind. And the Archons have already been doing that for a long, long time, and they are on the verge of extinction. The generation that is there now, even though it may live for thousands and thousands of years because their lifespans are incredibly long, evidently, this is the information I've got, but at some point they were, like in the movie Prometheus, where they were faced with extinction and they had to, I have not looked into this movie, I'll have to say, where they did have to use some means to find another way to reproduce, okay? See the movie and you can figure it out yourself. You will know more than me then, probably, because I haven't seen the movie. But either way, I'm taking that as a thing showing human beings. As I say, I think the movies show human beings, the future, the past, the present, it said all that. They show it, and they show what is and what will be and what has been, all that, I think. And it's a question of being able to pick, like I say, cherry pick these things in a way, that's the best I can do, and say, is that not where what is happening with humans and what is happening with us and what could happen and why would it happen? Now, if these beings are going extinct, okay, and humans, if they get to where they can't reproduce naturally and therefore they reproduce more artificially, which is what happens with a lot of them now anyway, like a lot of human beings are not having babies, etc., naturally. This has been going on for a long time. Now, if it got to where very few could, and maybe none, okay, then they would all be reproducing technically, artificially. I'm not going to say, I've said before that I think that there's a loss of spirituality once you even reproduce technically, but that's not the issue that I'm getting at. I'm still saying that because these beings are, if you take the movie Prometheus, and they then will need some means to reproduce. And humans have been there, we're in their matrix, and we have been their fuel, more or less, for a long, long time, shall we say. They will need, this is just how I said, a vessel for their survival to stop going extinct. Now, humans, if they become more technical, they could well become that vessel for them. You see what I'm saying? So then we will serve a very valuable purpose for them. But we can only serve that if we don't reproduce naturally. Now, this is a choice, but if we kept reproducing naturally, then we will not be of value to the Archons for their reproduction, because they need a technological vessel for their a way to reproduce. I'm guessing this, I'm speculating and fantasizing totally, but um, you know, that to me kind of fits in that. And so if humans become more technological and do not reproduce naturally and then start to think in terms of becoming technological, and in other words, they become the same as what the Archons have become. But they also then will be on the verge of extinction unless they start to reproduce technologically and become more technical, more technological. Okay, if you're following me, it's hard. I know it's hard for me too, but so. But don't forget, we would only be starting this process, whereas they are at the end of it. They've went the whole gamut of the technology and they are on the verge of extinction. Human beings would be starting. So they have thousands and thousands, maybe millions, I don't know how many years, astronomical amounts of time to go down that path before they would once again become extinct too, because the technology can only lead to extinction. Because technology just cannot keep indefinitely reproducing. The only reason that some species have survived on this earth is because they reproduce naturally, and that is why some species are still here. Not very many, but that is because of the matrix. In reality, the living library of every living species, if it had just stayed all natural and only reproduced, would all still be here right now intact. But, you know, that did not eventuate. We got sidetracked and it doesn't exist now. But you see what I'm getting at is that I think that the Archons are looking for a vessel, a technological vessel, to stop themselves from going extinct, to get back their immortality almost. Because human beings are spiritual beings, so therefore they are really eternal. It's complicated and I don't fully understand it because I'm not that advanced, okay, and that's the truth. But so I'm just taking concepts from movies and I'm piecing them together and I'm looking at the way humanity is going and I'm saying that this is what I think has happened to the Archons. So like in the movie, they're now looking for a vessel to keep their race from dying. And if they can make humans more technological and stop breeding naturally, then they could combine with the humans, kind of. I know it's fantastic, and I wouldn't even know how it works, but these are your advanced technical beings. They've been manipulating our world and our reality for thousands and thousands of years, so I would think a lot would be possible. And, it sounds fantastic to me too, but at the same time, that's the that's what I'm getting. That's what I sense is their goal, because it's a necessary goal for them. Because if you're going extinct, you're going to really be frantic to find a way to stop yourself from becoming extinct. Humans will be faced with that in a huge amount of time. If they keep breeding naturally, which to be honest, because they are playing so much in the matrix, even if they want to, that will not happen. They have to become aware. We do have to become aware. See, I'm aware, but I can't do anything about it. You have to raise the vibration and keep everything natural, because at the low vibration, you're at the mercy of the matrix, so therefore the matrix can make it so that you can't breed naturally, because if you are in an unnatural environment which is not conducive to your body being healthy, then eventually you will not be healthy enough to reproduce naturally. So you will have to reproduce artificially or technologically. That's common sense, and we use that now. We worship the technology, we worship the science of it, and even the health way we go technologically. We don't we don't cure our body naturally. We cure it chemically and technically, etc. And if our bodies become more technical and more that way, then of course that will work too. I guess the question will eventually be, that's assuming that we even become aware of this. There again, it will be a choice, but I think that these things are happening and we're not actually choosing them. Okay, someone said, why do they show it in the movie? So I think I said this before in another video. The reason they show everything in the movies is because they have to. Because this is the thing that I've got anyway, and it's from information, and I piece it together and see it to be true. They have to show humans the truth of everything. Why? Because evidently, and there again it's beyond me, but there is a kind of universal law that, this is what I got from another source, that no race can be wiped out or exterminated, deliberately by another race or another beings. In other words, put it this way, I'll use a fantasy example. If the Archons wish to wipe out the human beings, right? Supposing they no longer serve them. And they have that power because they control the matrix. So, and they have the technology. And they have full control over every human being on the planet. So they can do that any way they want. But if they do it, there will be intervention from other beings, because it's a universal law that you can't do this. So they have to show, look, this is a game on this earth. Human beings have to be shown the truth. They're shown it in all different ways. But most of the time, like if you watch a movie, as I've said before, you don't think it's true. Some movies are true, but you don't think the ones that are set so-called in the future have any reality now, despite the fact that the technology is there by these beings, because they're technologically advanced, thousands and thousands of years ahead of human beings. So every time you see a movie where you see all this ridiculous mechanical type technology and everything being, even though I don't watch a lot of it, this is what is available now to the Matrix. It's just that we are not shown it, because in order to keep us serving them, we have to be kept, shall I say, in the dark. We're like, I suppose we're like this. Like there are animals on the planet, right? And they behave naturally. Like maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to, it's hard for me. I'm not going to use birds because I believe they're superior because they can fly and we can't. Okay, I've said that before. But supposing it's like, I don't know, well, even like your cats and your dogs, okay? And there again, they're not good examples. Okay, say the dogs, okay? Because I think cats do have some awareness of things. I'm not going to go there. That's just me, what I think. It's not. But like supposing we had dogs or even any other species that are out in the wild, anywhere, they live in that natural world, and they think that is their real world. They're unaware that humans are operating with TV sets and mobile phones and all the technology. In other words, they're in a different world to us, even though we're sharing the same space, but they're not aware of it. And humans are like that, I think, in a funny kind of way, in the sense that we are like the way we look at animals, that's how they look at us, because we're put into that limited realm where we think it's just all a lot more natural and a lot more limited, even though that's we're now going far too far into technology. But that technology is still nothing in comparison with the technology that controls the matrix, or the beings that control it, or even other human beings that are operating for the matrix, because some of them, I've said this before, that like that if you've got a real lot of money, you're going to be able, and you know you can get scientists to develop things for you. You can, all sorts of things. It's like that, like if I had billions of dollars and I've got, you know, I can I could get any top scientist to do things for me and create technologies and things. It's there's a bit of common sense to that, but it is a joint thing because even the human beings, they're very much controlled by the matrix and by the beings. You have to see it really. But once you start to see it, you can see how it operates and you can see how it's taking place. And plus, that you do need to find the knowledge too. But anyway, that was my thing, was that they need a vessel, a human technological vessel, because until the human decides to breed technologically and becomes technological themselves, then this is just my fantasy, okay? It is like, I think, in that movie Prometheus, I did not see it, but is it not true that in that movie, the being that they used, whatever it was, to stop themselves from going extinct, the engineers they're called, aren't they? That's right. To stop the engineers that so-called were the advanced beings and created humans and all this sort of stuff, although they created artificial humans, I think. I don't know. But the thing is that they used a being and they worshipped that being because that being gave its life for them to then keep going. Yeah, but this could be the same thing, because human beings, if they become technological and can no longer reproduce naturally, they will help the Archons from going extinct so they can go on, because they would use the human vessel through technology, but humans will be stuck in the technological lane, which is not, I can't really explain it, but I would think that they will be trapped then, because they will be, for one thing, they'll be stuck here probably in this earth thing forever. But the technological beings don't mind that, because they will use the bodies of the human, the technological bodies of the human, to keep their species going. But it will be, well, this is just what I'm speculating. So I'm saying it will be only one species can survive. Humans will be giving up their way of continuing on and surviving, but the technological beings, they can then survive and go on. Now, I don't have the scientific way, and I'm not an advanced spiritual being, so I can't see the full truth of this. I can't see how it works. I don't understand it fully. It is though I'm just glimpsing something. I'm grabbing it. And most people would say it sounds fantastic and would be wrong, and but I'm piecing together everything that I'm now receiving and saying that if human beings are convinced to no longer breed naturally and they all breed technological, there has to be a reason for the Matrix to set up this scenario. And if the technological advanced beings that control it are on the verge of going extinct, they need a vessel to keep going, and they're seeing the human being, if they can get them to become a technological vessel, that they can use that vessel to keep going. They can then inhabit the technical human being type of thing. I don't know how this works, and I'm sure I've got it all wrong, but in essence, I think I'm hitting on something. But now, look, some people might say, and this just come to me this very second, perhaps I shouldn't even put it there because it really isn't how I would see it. Because in essence, right, if human beings are spiritual beings in a physical body, temporarily, shall we say, and certainly not at full capacity, and not aware that they're spiritual or what their real place in this universe or whatever you like is, totally in the dark, living like the animal even on this earth that is not aware of the humans that have much more control. Like the animals are not aware that humans can wipe them out. Animals are not aware of humans interacting with their earth in a technological way. And this is how we are in comparison to the technological beings. We shouldn't be. We should be aware of it all, but we're at the low spiritual level, so we don't know. We only have, like myself, the limited information that filters through. And that is only because the matrix has exposed itself because of the frequency factor, which I've mentioned before. If the frequency starts to rise, the humans become aware, the matrix, game over. Game over. They use that term a lot now too. I've seen it and whatever. And they are talking that way because it is, we are at a changing time, I think. And, you know, you can say it's a worry thing, but I believe it is a very worry thing. And it isn't fear-mongering to be saying this because you see it happening. It shouldn't be happening, I don't think, at all. But if a spiritual being becomes technological, that is the death of the human being. Because the human being is really a spiritual being. So that is extinction for the human race. Okay? That is extinction for the human race then. And if you are going to be a vessel for another being, for theirs, so they can survive. Now, some people might say, can we not? Yeah, well, we did that before. We incorporated the Archons into our being. We bred. We were genetically manipulated, changed. There was interaction. This is why we went from the Garden of Eden and did not develop our full abilities. Why most of our mind is closed off to us, why most of our DNA is not active, to where we are living at a limited level, and to where right now my physical body is defeating me, whereas it should not be. This is the Archon world. This is the Matrix. So do you see what I've done with the movie and what I'm saying? Now, some people would say this is what has been speculated in recent times. And it's a good argument, if you like, for can you combine, you know, and I've said this, I think I've said this before, can you combine technology? Can you combine a human with technology? Of course you can, at the loss of the human being, because a human being is a spiritual being. And already there has been loss by intervention with technical beings. You know, we are not at our highest level. This evolution thing that we have evolved into this wonderful human species, who is now thinking of evolving further into technology, this is not the true story, I do not think. But if I'm wrong, then everything at least is not so bad. So I don't blame people for not um, for not wanting to see it that way. But that is what I would think. And you know, if I mean, like, if you could also say, well, if I go back to the movie, which I really must see because I'm talking through my hat, having only picking up bits of it and yet making a whole story out of it in a way. But um, if those engineer beings created humans who are less than them, and then they are going extinct because of excessive use of technology, because they have incorporated technology, as I say, into their body. Now, you would say they are still our some people might say they are still our creators and therefore our gods. Okay? They're just terms that I'm using. I don't say I believe this. I don't say that I believe they created us and that they're our gods. I'm just saying that's as the movie goes, or as some people would see it, okay? The Anunnaki, the same thing. If they, some people no doubt would say they created us. They did not do like I'm speculating that they interacted with some of us and made us into less, because we had not been allowed to evolve naturally, where we would be at a high level and higher than them. I've actually speculated, but that did not happen. But some people will just say no, they actually created us from nothing, from like in the Bible, almost from the dirt, or obviously they created us, if they did, in a laboratory because they're technical beings. But either way, then you would say, well, look, they are our gods. They created us, so surely we should help them and combine with them to make sure that they do not die. And that as they are our gods anyway, we should be evolving and going along their lines and evolving more into technology. That I shouldn't have even put this stuff here because I do not go with it at all. I'm just putting another side to the argument for anyone who's out there who might be thinking this way. And quite frankly, I don't know where it's even coming from in my own mind, because it's, to me, it's all kind of insanity, but it's also the truth in a funny kind of way. But it's all bizarre to me because, like I say, this is not something that I particularly enjoy or like, and I don't believe that it should be so at all. But that argument could be put, because the people who want to go with technology would be thinking that way anyway. They would be seeing the technology as human evolution, human advancement, okay? So they have no problem going with technology and no problem incorporating technology, as the engineers did, into their body, if you look at it that way. But I'm saying the movie is showing you that this is the product of technology. If you incorporate it into your body, at some point you will become extinct, as the engineers did and were. They were becoming extinct. They had to use another vessel, and if they could not find another vessel, they would die. They were lucky enough to find another vessel. I have not seen the movie right through. I think that then when that vessel is no longer serviceable, they'll be faced with the same problem again. This is what technology offers you. Nothing really, to be quite frank, in my view, but that's just my view. Because, you know, you can advance really, in my view, you can advance really high with it to a point. But at some point, that technology will, using fancy words, and geez, I'm not fancy, I can tell you, but you will outsmart yourself, literally, with technology. Even technological beings that are thousands and thousands of years advanced technologically to us, not spiritually. And as I've said before, if you are advanced spiritually, you are more advanced than any technological stuff that there ever is and ever was, because you should, as a spiritual human being, have the power of creation. So technology is limited and nothing by comparison with that. You have the seed of God. You are a part of a God type thing by that, because a God means a creator. It's a complicated argument. I'll say that, because, you know, can a technological being be a God creator? That's an interesting point. About the only thing that I could say about that in comparison to the earth, shall I say, about the only thing you could really say about that, if it's a technological God being that rules the earth, and I'm talking, and of course I can only compare to the average human being, because I know there are human beings on this planet that serve the God directly and that control the earth, so they're doing better. So they have technological, like these beings, more advanced medical, more, and they can continue their life on, etc., etc. But even they probably at some point will be faced with the same dilemma of the technological beings if they go down that path. It could take millions of years. I don't know how long these things take, because our time span is nothing. But the only way that at a physical level a race can keep going is by natural breeding, in my view. I'm not saying that you can't technologically keep going, but I'm saying at some point it will become not serviceable anymore, like in that movie Prometheus, where they clearly at some point had, advanced as they were, not been able to breed or continue their existence technologically. So they would have died out, no longer existed. It's a complicated thing. In fact, it's almost, I can't even get my head around any of this, to be quite frank. I really can't. I'm putting it there, and putting it together as a whole is almost impossible, because you do have to be at a high spiritual level, I think, to comprehend it. And more so is the fact that we do not comprehend anything, that we don't know anything, that we are like little animals here. So even when we see the movie, we can piece together the movies like I'm doing, sure. But to really get the whole concept, because we haven't seen it, we haven't lived it, it's kept from us. It's, you know, we're in this very limited existence, which is the idea, because then we can serve the God entity. So if we go down the technological path to where we are then a vessel for these beings so they can continue on, it's not their fault that they're in this position. But that's what technology does, I think. This is just my view. And it is in the movies. So I think that the movies show us all. And they do this because they have to, because we're spiritual beings and we have this right. There is something else there that is like, hey, it's a choice and it's a test, and it's bizarre. It really is. And it seems, why is it necessary? That's because we went down the wrong path. None of this should, in my view, really be happening at all, but it is, and it's diabolical to say the least. But more importantly, we just can't get our heads around it. Even with the information, it's impossible. But essentially, yes, I'm sorry, my mind's getting distracted by the outside things, but yes, I do think the movies and everything that is around us shows us the truth, shows us the true picture, and we need to combine them to get an idea of what's going on and what the future can hold. Because a lot of the stuff shows you the future and shows you the history and shows you other beings and things. I mean, if you think that these things are just invented by some imaginative mind, I don't think that's the case. And I do think that we have to be shown the truth, um, because what is happening here is where one species takes over another, but they're not wiping them out. So there is no violation of that kind of universal law that you're wiping out the whole human species, or any species for that matter. But if it's a gradual thing, and if it's a consensual takeover, which it always has been, because although we are not aware what we're doing as human beings, like my life, we're all in the position we're in because of the wrong choices. And, and this is the same with humanity as a whole, is that if we make the choice to keep going down the technological path and to combine with technology as we do now, then no other force or beings can intercede and say, hey, look, you are taking control of humanity. This is the potential for their extinction. Instead, it's like, no, the others are asking the human being, even though we're not really being asked directly, but we see it, we should know it. We consent to it even if we do nothing, because if you let something happen around you and you do nothing, that is still a yes. You see, this is how most of us have been. I know myself most of my life. So even if you don't think you're particularly doing much at all, if you let things happen, that choice of ignoring something even is still a yes, because you've seen it, it's there in your reality, and you haven't chose to say, hey, stop, I don't want this is not right, my human rights are being violated in some way, or my spiritual rights are being violated, or something's being violated, I just don't want this. You're not really, you are given a choice. Now, I might sit here and say, well, I don't think I've had any choice because everyone else is making it for me. Well, this is the danger too, because as we are all connected, and there's more than just one of us, we're not combined, we're not all connected now like we should be. So therefore, we're not making a joint choice. We're fighting amongst ourselves, and but that still will result in some sort of choice. I think I've lost myself in this argument. But essentially, human beings are used against one another. While we're bickering amongst ourselves over the trivialities of the matrix, the bigger matrix thing is coming down with a higher purpose, because those beings are not, while we're concerned about our mundane existence, which we're forced to be, and while we are dealing with, I know myself, negative human beings on a daily basis, you You haven't got time to focus on a bigger picture. You don't know the workings of the world at all, and you don't know that things are changing and that things are getting away from, yes, natural conception, natural, all this sort of stuff, to where, yeah, now, like I say, some people might, even with full awareness, they might, because there are a lot of humans who think that this is okay and they're fully aware of it, but they're not really aware of this thing that I'm talking about. I don't think they could be. But I guess that's because if you're aware of, if you've got all the information and you believe that it is good to combine with other technological beings as a vehicle for them, for their immortality, at the expense of your spirituality, that would have to be because you don't believe that you are a spiritual being, and you don't believe that you should have evolved to a higher level and that you have other abilities and that you are at such a limited level. Because if you actually believe that your limited level is your actual full evolution, and that's the best, and that you are now the best that you can be as a human being, then of course everything I say does not make any sense and would not be valid. And I get that, because then you would think that, yes, okay, we've evolved to this, and you dismiss all the past history and you dismiss the world. I would say if you dismiss even the world, just looking at it the way it is, because to me that's what I do. I just look at the world the way it is and I say, hey, this is technology and this is ruled by a God entity, or even humans who rule it, for instance, regardless of what they worship or what they think. This is our reality. What is it? Is it good? Is it conducive to human beings, a great future for them? There are some who tell me that they think it's good. That's their choice. That's what I say. It's all a choice. For I don't think that I got a choice, because I think I am now in a technical world that I don't want. But because everyone else wants it, I'm stuck in it, and I'm compromised, completely compromised, sick, ill, to where, yes, I would think, hey, I need technology to fix up my body because it's so bad. But I do not believe that it should be bad. I believe it is bad because of the technology and because of the way this matrix is operating. Um, and that is designed, I think, to make it go technologically, so that the technological beings can have a vessel for their immortality, so they don't go extinct, like in the movies. This is my fantasy, and you know, I think I'll have to leave it there. I was going, but what I'm saying is humans are acting for the matrix. They're acting for the beings. I'm not putting it right. If only I could put it at a real basic human level and show you, because I see it all the time. You may see it too. Some people will see it. Others would, like if they're anything like I was only not long ago, they will not see any of it and they won't care about it. And they will think that they're doing okay as they are and that they're at the best that they can be. They will not even consider, or even as I wouldn't have, that we should, as human beings, just in our natural form, should be doing so much better than what we are. In fact, as far as I think about it, even though I'm dying here right now, I can tell you. So I should be very much for the opposite, the technology, and say, hey, but no, I still think, I do not believe that at all. I think that we are deliberately convinced that we are limited, and we are limited because not only of that belief, but because we are playing in this matrix that makes us limited, and the technology makes us limited, and this is not our vehicle at all. This is not our way to advanced evolution. This is the opposite. We have someone said evolution. There is no evolution in a human being. We have not, as human beings, we are evolving into something else. And we are evolving into duplicate beings of the God entity that controls the matrix to serve his purpose. But is this what we were meant to do? Is this our correct path? Is this this is our chosen God? But is it our original God even? All these questions, I don't know. It's all fantasy, but you have to look at everything and try to piece it together. I see it a certain way, you might see it a different way. But yes, I do think all the movies, everything that we see around us shows us the truth. It has to be shown. Otherwise, why would it be shown? Because if you want humans to go a certain way, the Matrix wants humans to go a certain way because it's a control system. It has its own ends and it has its own means, and humans are the players in it. And they want you to play a certain way. That's just common sense. If you're playing a video game, you control the thing, so you play it as it suits you. Now, we're shown all the movies and all the stuff around us, and it is showing you the true reality. I'm trying to get my head around it, and I've got so many distractions. I'm sorry. We don't see it as a reality at all. We see it as fantasy. But if you're going to seduce humans a certain way, like the serpent originally, even though there again I believe it's technological beings, but it doesn't matter whether it's a spiritual thing anyway as well. So all these things are combined. There is a religious kind of thing to it, but that's more of a spiritual thing. I think people would buy that, It's just that religion is warped everything. It doesn't give us the true what we really are as spiritual beings, and it has not made this world a spiritual place, you see. So figure that out for yourself. The religions themselves have now lost their paths, even if they have good intentions, because look at the world. We are not in any harmony or in any spiritual thing. If you want to say your religion is based on love, look at the world. Is it full of love? Is it operating harmoniously? Okay, so some people might say, well, technology is the answer to that. We'll all combine as one. Yes, like in the Matrix, what's that word they use? We'll celebrate the dawn of the singularity where we all combine technically, when we were really supposed to be naturally combined spiritually and reach the proper levels. And it will be wonderful, and the machines will help us and be a benefit to us. The movie shows you the reverse to that. All the movies are showing you that technology is not your way, but instead we buy into the technology. So I'm saying, even the technological beings that run it, even the humans that operate and use the technology, the advanced technology that worship certain God and this and that, okay? Even they show you that technology is not your way. They show you the truth. They're obliged to do it, and they do so. And then they say, hey, the humans have been shown that technology is bad. All the movies show the technology as an enemy of the human being. But humans are now going towards the Matrix movie, despite the fact that the Matrix movie tells them that that is not the way to go and that it was a mistake and that now they have to battle the machines. The earth is destroyed. They really can't win. They're living in a control system where they have no rights, no freedom. It's all there in every movie. They don't never really show In fact, they don't even show the aliens or the beings that are advanced or that are different to us as friends. That may or may not, that's another story. That probably is not the case. I mean, it's like human beings, isn't it? We're all different in the sense that some will destroy other humans and others will help, and others, some will create, some will destroy. Um, you look at this world and say which is winning and which is the real thing and where has it really gone. But essentially, even with other entities, you can't presume that because something comes out there that they're all an enemy. You know, yeah, that's right. Archons aren't the only otherworldly beings. That would probably have to be true. In fact, there could be tons and tons and tons, and many people do actually know of these things, and and know this to be true. It's just a matter of whether you or I believe it or not. But if you accept that there is negative aliens, shall we say, there's no reason to speculate that there aren't positive ones. But they do not. We have a love-hate God, that entity that rules this earth. So that's our really only concern, because no others actually control the domain. That doesn't mean they don't exist. But as I've said before, if they do exist, which they would have to if these ones do, if you have negative beings that control the earth, there has to be positive ones out there too. But they have not taken dominion over this earth. The negative ones have. They have the power. So all is not lost. Well, who knows about that? It's still going. It's something that's going on. It could. Look, in my view, it could all be changed in the blink of an eye, which is the tragedy of it, if it's the case, because if it is as simple as has been told to me, that the vibration, that even a small number of human beings at high vibration can actually change the reality and therefore make it inhospitable for the Archon entities to actually create much negativity in it, or destruction, if you like, in it. Now, I don't know how it works, but this is putting it very simply. It's the best I can do. I'm a simple person. It would be ironic that we fight wars at a physical level. That is the Archon's game. Everything physical, not spiritual, not thought creating reality, not just thinking a certain way to make the vibration high to where, it's hard for me to explain because it's beyond me too, but it's like then they can't do anything. Then, you know, and also then, if you've got control of your own mind and you're at high vibration, you're not going to go into war no matter what the propaganda is, no matter what situation they tell you is happening, because you're not going to be afraid, because you're going to know that you're a spiritual being, that you're immortal and all this sort of stuff. So you wouldn't buy into it, you wouldn't do it because you wouldn't need to. You wouldn't be in fear that if you don't, you will lose your property, your life, or your thing. But then if you're all combined with other human beings anyway, that just couldn't happen, because you would all be of the like mind. But this is the opposite to the technological singularity that they talk about in the Matrix movie, because that is not something that humans will have control over. That is controlled by the technological God. It has to be, doesn't it? Because that's part of the matrix. Technology is the matrix, but I think I've lost my track and gone all over the place. But there was something else I wanted to say, but it's gone from me. But yeah, but I'm saying that it could be that simple, which would kind of be. This is why I probably feel negative, or think or feel not good, because it would be it would be unbelievable, and yet this is what could happen, because if you go along a technological line, if you go with the technology and you become trapped in that technological world body, and you don't think that there's any hope to, it would be ironic if we could have took back the world almost in a way, or at least made it hospitable for ourselves, and to where we have at least some ability to play ourselves in it as we would want to play in it, just by changing our mindset, as opposed to physically always trying to battle to fix things up. It would be ironic if that became apparent when we have already gone too far down the technological path, because there will be a point of probably no return. I don't know when that would be. For all I know, it could be now. I certainly don't see things, I certainly see a world that I don't understand at all, and that appears to be very much acting very technically and very different to even a few years back. And I find it very artificial, very controlled, very robotic almost in its whole function. And in the position I'm in, it just looks like a total matrix, to be honest. And I don't, it's not a world that I like that way, because, you know, even though I'm saying we are all connected, that is still a different thing. We're still individuals and we're free. But if you are combined technology and acting under the influence of technology and you're combined, you are not free, because the technology then is controlling you, and it's who operates that technology that will control you. Whereas if you're a spiritual human being and you're combined with others, you are still an individual and you're interacting, but you have full control over it. There's no control with technology. You give the power over to the technology, and whoever controls that is controlling you. And that's the questions that I would like, as I say, with the Archons and all this is the questions you have to ask. You know it's not you that's controlling it. But yeah, just before I finish, because it's late and I'm not very well, the business of, I would like to add this because I got this from other source a while back, and this is so true, is that we in this domain are controlled by a certain alien, Archon, God, entity, whatever you like, that has minions. Yes, it must have minions, because not even a God can operate without the support of others. It is a total battle, this whole thing, from what I can gather. It is because there are so many different humans, so many different species, so many different types of aliens, so many different types of beings. These are just words, okay? Because I don't know who or what most of them are, because I'm not in touch with them. If I think humans were at their highest spiritual level, they would see all these beings. They would know who is pulling the strings. They would know who is good or bad for them, because, you know, if someone is trying to wipe you out or not beneficial to your spiritual, to where you're at your thing, that is not really your friend. But if you think it is your God and you think it is beneficial to you, and whether you've got the whole picture, if you believe if you've only got half the picture but you believe you've got the whole picture, well, you will buy into that and you will believe it to be the whole picture. You'll believe it to be true, so you will go with it. This is what I think happens on this actual earth. I think some people have much more of a picture than what I do of the reality. There are humans at the top that naturally have more information and more access to the science and to the technology and to what is going on, to an extent. Whether they have the full whole picture, I do not know. I think that humans, if they're at their higher spiritual levels, would automatically see everything. This is what I think. But instead we see nothing. Like myself, I'm floundering and looking and having to look at movies, because I'm saying, yes, they have to show you the truth, so you have to look at those to see the bizarre reality that really exists, and how backward we are, and how much we are kept in the dark, literally. Um, but if you want to believe that they just make all that up, that someone's just got some vast imagination, I'm saying even imagination has to come from somewhere. People don't just invent things. I don't think that's true. I used to think that. I used to think, oh, wow, I must be a real dumbo because all these script writers and people, they can envision all these things and they can invent all these fantastic ideas about the future and and about what could and what could be and what, all the science fiction. No, it's not. No one has any more imagination than another person. Sure, some people might. Well, I mean, I know that some people do, but that's spiritual. That's right. The imagination and all that is part of being spiritual. But no, I don't think that is the case. I think that they already have, because they are closer to what is going on, they see a different reality. Like if you're behind the scenes and you see more advanced technology, then you can create a script. Sure, you've still got that ability to write a script, but no, you're not just inventing the whole thing, you're adding on to what you know and what you see, and then making well, that's well, I'm getting sidetracked because I'm making this and trying to keep on that track about the things, but sometimes there's a comment there, and I want to address it. Even though, look, I don't have all the answers. I'm no different to everyone else. We're looking, but yes, we are. Yes, we are totally controlled by the Archon thoughts, by the Archon. It is a total. Now, whether some of these beings can directly, as I said, at low vibration, at a oh, thank you. Someone just said I was talking about. I'm finding it hard talking about movies. In other words, someone's telling me to keep on track. Actually, I thank anyone for doing that, because that's exactly what I do need. The Archon mind things do get into me and sidetrack me, and even just the things around. Yes, about the movies and things. Yes, okay. Look, yes, I think that they do just, they have more information, they see a different reality. Like, it's like if you're a rich person, you have a different reality to me, as I've said before. You're much more in contact. You see the technology, you'll be given it, you'll be using it. Some of these people may even be in direct contact with alien beings, okay? There's no reason to assume that that's not the case, because if you go back even into the quite recent past, where, you know, aliens supposed to have come. This has got nothing to do with the Archon um, beings that came, back at the beginning. But even whether you believe or not, the Roswell type things, that sort of thing, and people that see these beings that are that this and that. Look, it's all a mass mind thing. So basically, you finding the truth is very hard. But even at that level, you have, you know, the idea of aliens and the collaboration of them, say, with top people, top humans, and then an exchange of technology behind the scenes, because that would happen, because they're not going to do it with you and I, because we're just not that important, and they probably think we wouldn't know what to do with it. We're too ignorant, which, is another thing, because we give our power over to the powers that be. We elect people to control this matrix for us, or control our society. And we do this, and this is just the way the world works. I'm I don't want to get too complicated because it is a minefield, really. To be honest, I have to admit I'm losing my own strength and stamina with it. But yes, the movies are there to show us things and to show us that it does paint a picture very much that all aliens are negative. Now, this is probably not true. That could be part of the thing too, because then that can be used at a few, like at some point maybe we will become aware of aliens or aware of the entities and this and that. This will be allowed, maybe even, because the Matrix, we only get what the Matrix allows us. Because until you raise yourself spiritually, and no one, very few have, we will not be able to see things for ourselves. So we are piecing it together by the physical information we get, even by the movies and stuff. And that's only if you're prepared to say, yes, I'm going to say that these are not only possibilities, but someone left a comment there, but I have to admit they're beyond me. I've not looked into that. I don't know it. I quite honestly. I look. I have a very. I might sound as though I know a lot more than what I do, but I really know very little. I have not looked into all the histories. Like I said, I can see that movie, and I haven't even seen it, and yet I'm prepared to then say that these controllers are on the verge of extinction and going to use the human beings to prolong their existence at possibly our expense, depending on how you look at it. Um, so I'm limited, and I'm too old to now have a whole history. If I'd done this from the day I was born or from a certain age, I would have more history and be able to talk about. I can't even talk about ancient civilizations, only very lightly. So some questions you'd have to figure that out for yourself. And I think that's what we're meant to do. We're meant to figure it out for ourselves, use every bit of information we can. Okay, yeah. Well, this is it. We're if you come to something very late, so this is where you have to go to other sources and other people who studied lots of things for what is an archon. Okay. Yeah, well, someone just said, what is an archon? I think I did say this at the start of the thing, but I'm not. There again, it's a term. And look, I'm not going to say that I'm 100% sure about it. It is a term that is used now. And it gets some people to look at my videos. But what I'm, so I'm openly going to say that. But look, it is a term, right? My understanding of it is there is something that controls this world, and it's not us, right? Putting it bluntly. Archon was used by various ones in later times. I've not studied that either. I think Gnostics or something used the term Archon to describe other entities or whatever, but I've not studied that either. I'm very ignorant on this, but it is a collect. I personally, from my knowledge recently, is that it's a collective term for the being who has the minions. Like I say, the Anunnaki is one race that we've heard of, or that at least there again, it was new to me, but they were the ones who originally came, those who from heaven came and changed the human being, interacted with them, interbred with them, etc., etc. I don't understand, because these are technological beings that were thousands and thousands of years ahead of the humans. So of course, I don't know what they did or how they did it, and we still don't, but they rule this domain, and they are in conjunction, evidently. Other ones that talk about these things talk about reptile, humanoid type beings. They work with the Anunnaki, evidently. They have combined or whatever, And then there are the greys that people are familiar with, which to me I wouldn't have even believed in them not very long ago. And they're the kind of, the human beings that are represented with the big eyes and the kind of non-gender like body where there is no distinct gender. Now, and these are more or less, evidently, this is my information, they are more or less the slaves of the other two, but that's a hierarchy, I'm guessing, because the reptile type, humanoid type beings have combined with the Anunnaki beings, and the greys, the genderless type, big-eyed, almost ones that we're familiar with, they are the slaves or the total workers, because my information said that they are like we could become, this is the message, totally controlled by artificial intelligence. They were once probably more spiritual, but they've now become slaves of the higher ones, shall we say, the Anunnaki and the reptilian type humanoid beings, and they serve them because artificial intelligence gives someone else the means to control you, and so they are the slaves or the workers or and they're a hive mind, all combined, all under the control of. This is what I have the information. On a negative note, some people have said they are the humans of the future, and I cannot go there, and I do not know that because whatever, but it certainly could be a human future if you look at what I've been saying, and if you look at the movies, and if you say, well, that's a possibility. And it's more than a possibility, because, artificial intelligence is just that. It is a takeover. It is not human. It is an artificial means, and it is a thing that can trap humans, and then these beings, yes, have a vessel. This is what I was saying. This is how I see it, but I don't understand it. So I'm being basic. So therefore, not many people would be probably thinking it's real to say it, but this is what I'm speculating, and this is what I've seen in the movies, and I believe everything I see in all the movies. I say they show you the truth because they have to, and then you, as most people, just see it as fantasy and don't think that it's even if you think that it's not real now, you have to say, hey, of course this could be a reality in the future. But of course then you have to acknowledge that there are other beings and things, and this is where we will be trapped or tricked, if you like it this way, because even if you're aware that artificial intelligence can take over, which most people probably would acknowledge that, if you're not aware and don't believe that there are other beings that control this matrix, then you're going to think that you still have control over the artificial intelligence, and that therefore if you mix and entertain that, and like if you play with robots, you think, oh, well, that's okay because these are something that I've got control over. Whereas I'm saying we do not have control over any of these things. And everything now is taken over. Our whole perception, even our thinking, is taken over by the technology, whether it be just through conditioning or just repetitive showing you of how you should think. You should accept this, you should accept that, you should be broad-minded this way or not that way. All this is just telling you how you should think about the real world. It's not letting you decide for yourself. You think you are because you see it and you say, oh yes, I think that must be right. But look, if the world goes a certain way and everyone agrees that it's acceptable, I or someone else is not going to stand up and say, hey, no, that's wrong, because for one thing, you'd be in trouble. No one would like you. But even if you are saying, as I said before at the start of this, and I must finish off because it's dark, I'm not going to tell anyone directly what to do. You can't do that, and no one would anyway. But yeah, I lost my train of thought again. If I'll just go back to that point that I made at the start. It wasn't even a point. I'm just putting stuff here, right? I'm not actually even trying to ram it down. Yeah, well, that's right. All those things are quite right. Yeah, they're that's right. It is all about, what everyone else thinks. You go along with it. That's true. That's how the world works. That's how society works. That's because we are not really as we're meant to be. We are all connected, as I've said before, but unaware of it. So all this stuff that we go along with, we're really just going along with the matrix. We're not really combined spiritually to where we're creating what we really want or consciously doing anything. The matrix tells us something and then we agree to it or go along with that. That's probably pretty much how it works, really. That seems to be, if you look at it, and that's certainly how I would see it. But yeah, I was saying that, like, with that breeding stuff, even, right, which I don't really like to talk about these things, but this is just an example of, like, if 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 I if I yeah, but if I say that we need to keep breeding naturally, and like that was the crux of this whole thing at the start, but but like, if you have if you have people, as I said before, that choose to breed, that choose not to breed, right, for whatever reason, and choose not to breed naturally for whatever reason. Um, because like, if I don't want to mate with someone of the opposite sex, right, for whatever reason, doesn't matter, then I'm not going to be able to or not want to breed naturally. Um, but if I sort of say those specific types of people and say, oh, then it's not good to be a certain, it's not good for me to not want to breed naturally or with someone of the opposite sex, despite the fact that, as I've said before, if you don't, if everyone does not do this, then we go extinct. So it's kind of like that argument, and it's not an argument, it's a fact, but at the same time, um, it puts you in an awkward spot because, I can't tell someone, I can't tell myself or anyone else that they have to breed with someone of the opposite sex and breed naturally. All I'm saying is that if if we could see down the track and realise that this then will lead to our extinction, we might make a different decision. In other words, even myself, like, I would say that now, as a person, if I can see what I think will happen down the track, then I would probably, even in my life, have made different choices. But while you think that you're in the moment and that the world is all it appears to be, you don't base your decisions on that longer term way of looking at things. You will just say, this is how I think at the moment, and so I'll act on that. But either way, you see what I'm saying is that just the reality of something like that, if you have, and this is just being real, because, unless you want to go with technology, but if you say, yes, I do think technology is bad, but then you yourself, or a large group of people decide, oh, I think I've got too convoluted, but I hope that you follow what I'm saying. I'm saying that, you know, it's very, you don't want to be, but that someone was talking about, the idea of going along with the majority, right? That's right, going along with the majority, going along with the conformity of the crowd. Um, in other words, if everyone says to me, look, I don't want to breed naturally with a human being of the opposite sex. I want to do something else, or I want to do nothing. I don't want to breed at all. Then, you know, I can't say to those people, but if that was a large group, what if it became everybody, is what I'm saying. If it became everybody, everything is okay, even, but once you go with the group to too much, then it becomes more and more people. This is the whole thing. So if you have a majority thinking like that, then we go extinct. While we keep this world where, I was about to say where everyone is free thinking and free, but we're really not anyway, so that's kind of ludicrous for me to even say it. But I'm going to say where we think we at least have free choice and we make some, at least some personal choices, okay? That is okay for to have, we must have a mix of things. This is just a reality, you know, but while you go, if everyone decides to go with the group and it becomes to where the group says, oh yeah, we're all getting more and more a certain way, away from natural, what was considered normal even a few years ago. That might make us seem more broad-minded. I've said this before, and it certainly gives that impression. But it's no good being broad-minded in the way you look at other human beings, because you know I'm broad-minded. I don't care what anyone does. You know, and you know, I've been there and done that. I've thought about myself in different ways. So it's not like, you know, I say that quite honestly. You know, I've been round all that stuff over a lifetime thinking, am I this, am I that? Um, do I like this, do I like that more? I'm talking about human beings, you know. Um, and now I'm sort of saying, hey, that's all very well, all that. You know, is it more important for me to say that I prefer to be man, woman, or something else totally different, or whatever? Okay. Yeah, that's exactly right. That comment. That this is the point. It's not a point that I'm trying to make, but it's a reality that yes, it's all very well for me to say I want to be this or that, and it's my body, it's my right, and it is. But if everyone decides on the same thing, then look, just the point that I'm making, that if you don't if you don't have at least a majority or at least a certain number of people breeding naturally with the opposite sex, we go extinct. Either that or you use technology for that purpose. Either way, we go extinct. You see, that's what I'm speculating, okay? But I could be wrong. But it's all down the track, of course. So it's not now. So most people are like, oh well, who cares, because this will not happen now. And this will depend. I don't know how long it will be. I'm guessing that things are happening at a much vaster rate than what we realise. Much vaster, I'm guessing. Or at least that's what I see. And I'm seeing a lot more. Because there again, we don't see everything. We don't see the true picture. There again, another thing. If you just look outside your window and what's around you, you could well have a very limited view of what is going on in the real big world, much less at the topper levels, and much less what that Archon God, you know, with their totally different way of thinking. There are different species, and yes, there are different. Yes, there would have to be different good and, let's just say that without saying good or bad, even though that's just putting it simply, let's just say there would be good or bad aliens, or in other words, not so much good or bad, but some aliens would be beneficial to humans, to their growth as spiritual human beings, and would be horrified at their demise. Others would be glad for that because they can use that, and they're technological, and if humans become technological, that serves their purpose, and they're, um, you know, that's just pretty much how it would be. But I have to go because it's late and whatever, and I think I hope I've just put some little things there, you know. But like I say, the movies and all that world, to me, I definitely take it as all fact, and certainly all possibilities, at the very least. Okay, and I think if we all did that, and we can, after all, if we're going to be in a technological world, we may as well entertain ourselves with it as well. Yeah, may as well entertain ourselves with it as well, and don't be like me. If you are watching all these things, don't let them bring you down. Use them to educate yourself, because especially if you're younger than me, you might just be able to get enough information. And if everyone could just see a bit more of a bigger picture, that also, even without being happy, that would, as I've said before, probably make, especially the more go-getter human beings, they would probably make things change, or at least balance things out. Because, you know, as I've said before, if you can't raise that vibration, which most of us are not capable of, certainly I'm not, but there is the alternative of getting the information to where you become aware. And then, you know, if that happens with everything, is about the majority, let's face it. That is the truth. It's no good. You have to get the right thinking, or at least the right seeing a bit of a big picture by a large amount. This is the way it has to be, or it can only be. You know, that's just common sense. You know, I better close off because I'm rambling too long. But thank you for listening, anyone that's listened. Good night to everyone. Let's see.